Today I'll be showcasing my build, which is a poison crit Hexblast Acolyte of Chayula, with the goal of pivoting to Archmage as soon as I have a little bit more mana. This is a very fun, very safe, fairly simple build that only has a 2-button playstyle, and we're taking advantage of the very easy crit scaling that you get from Eye of Winter, which applies critical weakness. We also have very, very high base damage of Hexblast, which can get to several thousand in the mid-30s level. According to my calculations, this build should peak around just about 4 million DPS. It could be a little bit higher, if necessary. If there are any downsides to this build, I would say that it has fairly low single target DPS, especially early on, because you need to get your poisons active, and you have to invest those in the tree to really feel sort of single target impact early. And also, this really sort of requires you to use Blasphemy. So again, Hexblast requires you to detonate a curse. Blasphemy, of course, applies a curse in an aura, so you don't have to cast it yourself. But that does add a little bit of spirit pressure. But of course, one underrated upside is that this build actually avoided the nerfs completely. Unless there's a hotfix, I think they'll be very, very good. So then, as for the skills, we've got Hexblast, Eye of Winter, and Blasphemy. And that's pretty much it. That's all you need. Like I said, it's pretty much a 2-button build. And the mechanics are fairly simple. You use Eye of Winter to give people critical weakness, and then you just detonate the curses with Hexblast, like so. I've gone for a slightly different variation here. Now, I am only on a free link at the moment because I'm actually only in, I'm only in sort of tier 2 maps, so I've got quite a bit of work to do. However, the concept appears to be quite strong. Eye of Winter I've actually equipped with Withering Touch. The main reason is Withering Touch will give Wither on hit, and Eye of Winter does a very large amount of hits, providing I have just a little bit of extra added chaos damage. So we see here, as soon as I walk over a purple flame, I get chaos damage, and that's all it takes to proc the Eye of Winter's Withering Touch, and I can get 50 stacks instantaneously, on top of the crit scaling benefit. And that's without investing in any further effective Wither, of course. I could add other supports to this. You know, I could add, let's see, I could try and add more projectiles maybe if I need to. I can improve the effective with it. I can see. I'll work it out and I'll let you know. But effectively the combo is like this. Eye of Winter, Hexblast. And you don't even need to use the Eye of Winter, but it is of course a lot more damage because you do proc 50% with it instantly. As for the curses, Temporal Chains and Despair are what I've gone for. Despair is pretty mandatory. As for Temporal Chains, you can go with Enfeeble if you want. It's entirely up to you. I can self-cast, but I don't really feel the need to. Maybe you could take out a curse and then put in Archmage, which to be honest I will do later. But I've only got 140 spirit and 1.4k mana. So that's for a later date. As for Hexblast, pretty straightforward really. Again, I'm going with a poison version. I've just got 3 generic sort of damage skills, not really much to talk about there. And yeah, that's pretty much that. Fairly simple playstyle. Takes advantage of the very large damage increase you get from the Flames of Chayula. Now as for the tree. So the tree itself is not particularly fancy. I don't have any crazy mechanics going on. It's more just we scale into poisons and we get multiple poisons because it's actually quite a large multiplier to your damage. So you really want to be getting these nodes here, which give targets can be affected by an additional poison. And if you're starting this build from scratch, bearing in mind you can't play Hexblast early. With the buffs to ED, you might be able to play that, or you can just pick a bow. It doesn't really matter. You want to get the poisons early, and then you want to get the second one here. This is a gigantic damage increase. This is very important because if there's anything to learn about this game is that the exponential damage you get from levels is completely bonkers. This is how you scale in PoE 2, guys, right? We need to have this, the highest gem levels possible. We all saw Jungron's build. We all watched how it got nerfed by 99.7%. We need gem levels, okay? Other important things, I've just gone for a bit of crit here because it's quite a large amount of damage. This is really cool. This gives massive area of effect to your Blasphemy. So if you see here, I can actually curse enemies from pretty much a full screen. Highly, highly recommend, oops, sorry guys. Highly, highly recommend speccing into as much AoE as you can. Here it's just chaos damage, nothing special. I'm going for Eldritch Battery and Mind Over Matter, mainly because the Chayula Monk just has so much damn leech. which is actually a convenient segue, because one critical thing about this build is you need to have as much mana leech as you can possibly get, as much increased mana leech as you can possibly get. So there is, there's 50% here, there is 35% here, and I've also got some more jewels. Let's see, I've gone for poison. My jewel priority has been poison chance on hit and also mana leech. You really need that mana leech, guys, because trust me. I'll do a little demonstration here. Let's see if I can just burn full mana. Yeah, it's going to take forever. But yeah, as soon as you get one of these things, you go back pretty quickly. And it's just a massive quality of life benefit. If there's any reason to play this class, it's entirely because of the mana leech. You really want to get as much of that as you can, trust me. You don't have to go into MOM. I like it. It's a good defensive layer. And as we know from the tree, there's not really a lot of defensive options on this tree. Almost everything is damage. So, as for late game, where will I go from here? Honestly, this is pretty much the core build, and you can kind of go wherever you want, honestly. I will go and get a bit more crits. This one's very efficient, this is very efficient. I may get this thing here, because this flat 11% damage of extra chaos will mean that my withered procs more easily. And also allows me to get extra effective withered here. I can get up to like 40% or something like that. I can probably get a bit more from jewels. It's a lot of damage is what I would say. If I got into Archmage, I may put some points into here. It's entirely up to you guys, honestly. I think this is a good sort of base. The core concept really is just to get as much leech and as much levels and the multiple poisons. You can get 3 poisons, but I have not opted to do that so far because, well, I need to get a bit more poison chance, but right now my chance is already 72%. That's good enough, honestly. I think that's good enough. I mean, I'll get that higher. Poison duration, not super important, but you do need as much magnitude as possible. If I was to give a stat priority, it would be levels. Then it would be increases in spell damage, things like that. That's very important here. Like I say, this is a +4, but you can get a staff which is a +7. You can get a helm which is +1 global, +3 here. You want to get as many levels as possible. And then you want to focus on increased spell damage and then also mana as well at the same time. Then you can get a bit of crit, a little bit less important, but it's a nice little boost of damage is what I would say. So, aside from that, all fairly simple stuff. And now I will go into the late game calculations because, as you can see, I'm only a level 72 character on this account. So here is why I think the build will be really strong. What I did was I tried to calculate the endgame DPS based off what we have available to us currently. And just to sort of play about with the numbers a little bit, incorporate a bit of Archmage and of course 3 Chayula Flames to try and estimate what I think a realistic look at my softcore trade league endgame damage might be like. So for my calculations, I took a base DPS without any resistance modifying hexes and without withered. This is just actually my tooltip DPS, guys, you can see here. I also tested this out on a boss and it's pretty much accurate, I have to say. So, my assumptions, I'm assuming an enemy has 30% chaos resist, of course. My base DPS is based off actual testing, and I've also verified this against the tooltip. Appears to be very accurate. And I'm assuming that I can find a way of getting lightning resistance to 0, mainly because if I don't, the increased power of Archmage will be a little bit bricked by the 50% resist, so I need to find a way of incorporating a bit of penetration and exposure, which is very easy to scale in this game. So as for the damage calculations, what I've done here is we take the difference in base damage of Hexblast, which by the way is very high. Even at my level 22 modified, you see it goes up to 747. That's pretty damn high. The difference between that and level 34, which I can get to from getting gem levels from the staff, the amulet, the helmet. You got the one from the tree, of course, and one from a support gem. Excuse me, everybody. So this actually ends up being a direct multiplier of 4.1 times once you get it to level 34, which is a pretty big increase. Now, when we scale that against what I think the impact of crit increased damage, more increased damage, cast speed, and of course any damage taken modifiers on the enemy will be in the late game. I believe that I can increase my crit magnitude by about 2 times, assuming I get to 50% chance, which is quite easy with critical weakness, to be honest. And a 200% crit bonus, but to be honest, this could also be 300%. So if you want to, you could just switch this to 3 each time to get an idea of what it would be. Yeah, you see, it's like double damage. The percentage increase, so right now on my character I have, you see I've got almost plus 100%, and I've got about plus 100% on the tree, increased chaos damage, so that's like plus 200. With a late game staff, I'll be able to get this to plus 400, so that's effectively a 2 times multiplier on the increase, so these 3 multiply together. I can use Sigil of Power if I need to. In addition, with 6 links, I should be able to get the contribution from more damage up to about double of what it is now in terms of the effective damage. I can double my cast speed because I've got no cast speed on the tree. I've got, well, very, very little. I've got none on my actual equipment anywhere so far. So I can very easily get that from 0.96 to like 0.5. That's not going to be an issue. The main issue with this one is mana. So I don't put a huge amount of priority on this, but it is a direct multiplier. And of course the damage taken here, so my testing was based without any hexes. If you count in Wither at 70% or slightly higher, Shock, which you'll get from Archmage, and the penetration you get from Despair, it's about a 2.86 damage multiplier, and I tested that out. Okay, so some of the assumptions here. Archmage 4000 mana with the poison magnitude gloves, so that we still get the poison magnitude even though it's lightning damage. Well, actually, against my current DPS, it's actually an 18.86 multiplier, and the reason for that is it's 360% increased as extra lightning, which is just completely bonkers with 4000 mana. I'm sure you could get this higher too. And again, as always, that always it goes by crit. This would also get multiplied again by my increased damage. I believe I can get this to about 2.5 times because it would go entirely through my spell damage at about 150%. And the Sigil applies again, cast speed, same story. Now the damage taken of course is lower because this doesn't apply to my chaos reduction, so this is a bit lesser multiplier, but that gives a contribution here. These are all scaling factors, by the way, guys. And then you summarize them and then you divide it by you multiply it by the actual DPS. And I'm also assuming that I'll have an uptime of 3 flames in a fight. For those that don't know, the purple flames give you 14% damage as extra chaos, but even though you can stack up to 10 of them, in practice it's never going to happen because each one of these flames has a separate cooldown and they tick concurrently, sort of independently of each other. So you can't just keep the uptime on your stacks very high. Generally speaking, I would say 3 is a reasonable estimate. You start off a boss room, you pick up 3 of them, you just unload your combo, and then maybe you move around and pick up some more. But you honestly could go quite a bit higher than this if you want to. I'm being a little bit conservative, but I think this is very realistic for my playtime. Now the good thing about this is I actually get a 4 times multiplier from all my increased damage, my spell damage, and my chaos damage, which is, I think it's independently multiplicative of the flames. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. We obviously don't have a lot of information at the moment, but I think that's how it works. So when you factor in these scaling multipliers, again, we get 187 times multiplier against my base damage, just purely from this endgame tree. And then when I incorporate Archmage and the Flames independently, I add these and I get a 922.5 scaling factor to my DPS. So I multiply that by my current DPS and I get just under 4 million. You could make this higher if you wanted to. For example, you could go to... you couldn't add these rings here. 20%, they do give 30% reduction in global defense, but I mean, it's an MOM build, so we don't really care. The energy shield is converted to mana, so you don't lose that. The only thing to lose is life. Not the end of the world, but in my opinion, the damage is just not that necessary. I think this amount of DPS, almost 4 million, should be entirely enough. Okay, and that's pretty much the build. I'm honestly having quite a lot of fun with it. It's pretty fun just walking around blasting things with this. It's a little bit slow single target at the moment, mainly because of like my cast time and the fact that I have to build up poisons, but the good thing about the mapping is this actually shotguns because it procs off multiple enemies at the same time, so it has a bit of an overlap. A bit harder to do that single target, but I think with almost 4 million DPS, it's not really going to be that much of a big deal. I mean, it means you kill the King of the Mists in what, 2.5 seconds? That's fine by me. Okay, and that's pretty much that. Have fun, I know I will, and I'll be back in a few weeks to see the updated version when I actually have the gear that I predict I'll be able to get. Okay, take care, bye bye.